The Shetland Islands are the northernmost region of the United Kingdom. This Scottish subarctic archipelago is known for its ancient heritage, breathtaking cliffside views, and green rolling hills. And 11 fire festivals per year. It's known for one other thing, too. Shetland has seen massive economic development for over 40 years due to its coastal proximity to multiple oil fields, including one of Europe's largest oil terminals. 10% of Shetland's workforce is linked directly to the oil and gas sector. But things are changing fast. The Shetland Islands have more recently become a leader in renewable energy. With some of the strongest and most consistent winds in the world, the island is currently building what will become the UK's largest onshore wind power site, poised to transform both the landscape and economy.
The potential renewable wind resources in the UK in general are massive. The big oil and gas industry here, the people who work in it, they have a lot of the expertise that would be required to develop not just renewable energy, but also some of the other kinds of energy like tidal.
But alongside this progress, international oil companies remain adamant on drilling off their shores. An oil field called Rosebank has been proposed off the Shetland coast by Norwegian oil titan Equinor. And that's where Tessa Khan comes in.
I'm Tessa Khan. I'm the executive director of an organisation called Uplift in the UK, and I'm a climate change and human rights lawyer. We're looking out over the town of Scalloway, which is the ancient capital of Shetland. So if you just look out across the coast, we're about 80 miles from the site that's proposed for the development of the Rosebank oil field. The Rosebank oil field is the biggest undeveloped oil field in the UK. It contains about 300 million barrels of oil, which is what would be extracted in the first phase of development of the field. Burning all of that oil would result in emissions that are equivalent to the annual emissions of the 28 poorest countries in the world. You know, the number of jobs that it sustains in the long term is not that many jobs, especially when, you know, you compare it to what is expected to happen in the renewable energy industry. So we're working to stop it from going ahead. And the good news is that we've done it before.
800 miles south of Shetland, the Cambo oil field is looming large with Extinction Rebellion demonstrators in London right now.
In 2021, there was another really large oil field called the Cambo oil field that was also up for approval.
My organisation is one of the ones that coordinated the campaign against the Cambo oil field.
Is the UK government really about to allow a massive new oil and gas field off Shetland?
As soon as people started to hear about that, they were outraged. And so it just became a huge topic of conversation in the media, on the streets. You know, people were marching against Cambo, and ultimately the level of political opposition across the UK to the development of it was so high that Shell ended up exiting, and so did the other partner that it had.
With Cambo oil field, there's a reputational liability for Shell, and ultimately it's one they've decided to walk away from.
If you look at literally all of the social change that we've achieved in our societies, every single movement for really transformative change involved people getting out on the streets and making a lot of noise. Nothing short of that is going to be sufficient. The history of social change will tell you that we can win that way. We are ramping up. The same coalition of individuals and organisations and grassroots groups that are out opposing Rosebank were out opposing Cambo. It's not by any stretch just Uplift. It is dozens of organisations. More than 100,000 people have already signed a petition against Rosebank.
We want to come out here to reconnect with them and to show a bit of solidarity.
Anything from 8 upwards, but there could well be more.
We're trying to better understand how people feel about the fact that they are home to this site of massive new oil and gas extraction, and what their concerns are about it and what support they need to transition into the jobs that we know will be around for decades to come.
The first question I wanted to ask everyone, how does the oil and gas industry impact life in Shetland?
We've got an infrastructure we just wouldn't have if it wasn't for the oil. It just all encompasses.
Yeah, very.
So it's difficult to fight against that for a lot of people in Shetland. And I don't think they realise we could have exactly the same from renewable energy and probably more.
Just stop oil. I think potentially that message is troublesome for us, I think.
Yeah, that's really interesting.
I feel that Rosebank is an absolute kick in the teeth.
Yeah.
And I wish everybody would get up and kick back.
You're in a minority in Shetland, and it can feel really isolating to ask for the things that you're asking for and raise the hard questions. I think that the oil and gas industry has never been as vulnerable as it is at this moment. I just think this is the most exciting time and the most critical time for us to be pushing and being ambitious about transitioning away from oil and gas. We're really conscious of the fact that we don't live here, we don't have the really kind of material interests at stake that a lot of people here do in relation to the oil and gas industry. But to be honest, we're all on the same side in that we don't want anyone to lose their jobs. We don't want anyone to lose their livelihoods. I think everyone agrees broadly that we do need to transition away from oil and gas. It's just a question of the pace and what the alternatives are exactly.
Well, welcome to what is the first ever public debate hosted by Shetland News. Scotland has some very ambitious plans, targets to reach net zero by 2045. And an island community like Shetland obviously plays an important role in all that. The question whether Rosebank or Cambo should come on stream will no doubt be a topic of discussion here tonight. Climate change? Come in.
One of the key ambitions is to move Shetland from fossil fuel dependency to affordable clean energy. And that is a really important word, affordable. So, your point is let's stop it tonight or tomorrow, almost. Yeah, but actually it's about having a just transition, all right?
We are currently in a period of huge global growth in renewable energy and of destruction of demand for fossil fuels, which has reinforced how we constantly underestimate the pace of this energy transition.
So the big question is, what would the impact on emissions be if all our future demand was met from oil overseas versus oil from Cambo and Rosebank? And what I found was that if we were to use Cambo and Rosebank oil, then there would be a net reduction in lifetime emissions of 3.2 million tonnes of CO2. Can you explain why the production of Rosebank and Cambo would result in more oil being burned?
Well, I think the point is that you can't prove that if we don't extract the oil from Rosebank and Cambo, that somebody else would substitute that absent production with their own production. There isn't just a constant supply. Supply is responsive to demand, and demand is responsive to supply.
Yeah. No, I would agree with that.
The truth is that the UK has good reason to move rapidly away from new oil and gas production. And we are in the top 10 largest historical emitters in terms of countries in the world. There is an undeniable and powerful moral imperative for us to show leadership on this issue. So rather than resist change, I would really urge that we embrace a rare and potentially fleeting opportunity to lead that change instead.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Meeting the people here in Shetland who are really courageous in the stance that they take in a town that's gotten rich off the back of oil and gas. I mean, it's inspiring and it's an honour to work alongside them. I'm confident that ultimately we will defeat Rosebank and Cambo. I know that we've got an amazing movement behind us and there are so many different imperatives, economic, climate, moral, for not developing the field that I'm confident that we'll win. If I didn't believe that, an individual can make a difference, I wouldn't get out of bed in the morning. I definitely believe that we all have agency and we can all make a difference. The lessons of history are really clear that social movements can unseat people who have been in power for decades, systems that have been entrenched for hundreds of years. That is all vulnerable when we act collectively. And that's, I think, why in the work that I do, as much as possible, it is informed by an understanding of how we are greater than the sum of our parts when we act together.